This is Rio de la Vista, and I'm here in the workshop with Ray Wright, and we're going to talk about his wonderful work with creating handmade bamboo fly rods, and his participation in the upcoming Keep the Rio Grande art show on August 15th in South Fork at the South Fork Community Center. So Ray, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of the show. It's, I guess I feel as though it's appropriate that in keeping the Rio Grande that hearkening back to an earlier time when things were perhaps made of more natural materials and worked just as well is appropriate to and probably appreciated by the people who love our river.
Well, certainly the fish in the river are a big part of our conservation work, so maybe you could tell us, how did you get into making bamboo rods? That's a labor of love for sure.
It is. When I was young, probably about 8th grade, my dad gave me a bamboo fly rod that I fished with well into my 30s, and I found that I liked it. I knew that they were certainly capable of fishing very well, but I didn't appreciate it probably, and it's only been in about the past year and a half when I developed a new interest and began to research the process involved in turning a grass into a fly rod. And it rather quickly became an obsession, and finding the resources and the tools and researching the methods for creating this became somewhat consuming. After you've created your first one, why the itch is always there to do the next one and to make it better. And while I don't know if anyone's ever created the perfect fly rod, why
It's a constant pursuit.
the constant pursuit of refinement in the technique and understanding the characteristics of the materials so that you can produce something that can be used and treasured and passed down.
And it's interesting what you said, bamboo is a grass?
Bamboo is a grass rather than a wood.
Oh, interesting. Very hard grass when it's...
Very hard grass, very interesting material.
And your rods, they're not like a hollow, just a thin a single rod of bamboo. They're made from many parts.
Right.
Like this
You know, the starting material is raw bamboo, and it tends to be crooked, and it tends to have nodes and imperfections, and the rods are hexagonal in shape, and that's because each section is made up of 6 individual strips that are tapered into perfect little equilateral triangles and then glued together to form the basis of the rod. The bamboo itself is called Tonkin bamboo, and it's all imported from a small area in China. And it was discovered in the early part of the 20th century that this particular bamboo had a very dense structure of fibers near the outer surface.
Wood. Looks like wood.
It makes it very, very flexible, yet very strong. Let me show you, just for example. This is a strip that's been split out of a pole of bamboo. A pole of bamboo is called a culm.
Okay.
And you split strips as the initial part, but you can see how flexible and yet the memory that returns with a strip of bamboo. But splitting a culm into manageable sized strips is the first part of the process. Once the strips are split out, why the challenge becomes turning them into those triangles. And so specialized forms are used, and nothing more complicated than a a simple block plane to begin removing the material that doesn't belong in the rod, if
The
you
nodes
will.
and the,
Well, the nodes are flattened and
Yeah.
straightened, but then the pieces are put into a form and reduced in size and made into these triangles. And
not only is it a triangle, it's tapered over the
well,
length of it, right?
let me show you how tapered they are. That would be a strip that would typically go into the butt section of a rod. The tip section of a rod gets extremely fine. A perfect little triangle that's about 35 thousandths of an inch thick at the tip. And 6 of those are then bundled together and glued to form the blank.
And the bundling makes them even stronger, right? By
Well, of
having
course,
multiple-
there's
like
there's
it's
6
like
of them.
laminate or something.
6 of them put together that form that hexagonal shape, and those power fibers, the very dense, strong, flexible fibers are at the outside of each strip. So you're congregating a lot of those into a very small space.
Very
Once the blank is completed, and we're able to customize rods in ways that the manufacturers of today with graphite are really unable to do.
So you can match someone's preference in flexibility or
You can
length.
find what they like and recreate it from thousands of different taper calculations that have been made both by old time makers and modern day people using the latest computer technology to calculate the stresses in a rod.
Amazing.
So you can build to whatever taper a customer might find preferable to his style.
I think it's the engineer in you is being put to use here too.
You know, Rio, it's I've been farming for 35 years, and lots of times in farming it isn't a matter of necessarily doing it right or doing it pretty. It's a matter of getting it done now.
Yeah.
And I've had a tendency to rush through things. So a big part of the motivation for me to try this was that I could recognize immediately that it would require patience and attention to detail. And I said, if I can slow down enough and pay enough attention and not get in too big a hurry to finish something, to build a fly rod properly, it will prove something to me personally as far as the ability to slow down and have the journey be as important as the destination.
That's a wonderful outcome, because that's, I think in the arts too, it's the same, it is an art form to be able to slow down and concentrate like that. Can you think about work while you're making one of these?
If you start thinking about work too much, you'd better just put up your tools and
Come back
turn
to
off
it.
the lights and come back when you have the time to get lost in it a little bit.
I think a lot of artists would say the same thing.